Thompson Productions.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
I think Tyler is amazing.
And I'm a fan of this show. I've watched several episodes.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you, Tyler. You stink, Tyler.
Never promise crazy a baby.
Oh, I like that. That's a cool idea.
Are either of you homosexuals?
I go both ways. What do you think?
You mean like flaming or?
No, we're not homosexual, but we are willing to learn.
But I do wonder, for others, in other cases, whether libertarianism today is just an excuse for many on the right to act selfishly.
Look at me. And then some fat asses in Washington started having opinions. The Olympic Committee started having opinions. You bitch, I know you. You started writing your opinions.
And it just makes me wonder, you're dead, bitch. You know, why are you doing this to this poor guy?
I don't care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
Did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you. That
Power.
Hello. This is Tyler, LPR, coming to you Friday night. Things are a little chaotic around here. I've always had such grand plans for preparation, and then I'm shoving things together. Eddie Graham's in the chat. I think that's the only person we have in there. Welcome. Let's go. Let's see the full chat. There's no one. Eddie, you got to say something again. People, put your names in the chat. Drop it down there. It'll populate at this point. Welcome, LPR, episode 247. Tyler Yonke. I'm repeating myself, but make sure you go to our Substack, like, subscribe, everything here. And we've got a show for you tonight. We're going to talk about degeneracy. Let me put my lights up. I'm going to put some additional lights up so you can see everything I've got to offer. And then it's been a weird week. My wife and I, we had Memorial Day. My wife and I then went and played pickleball with a friend and her boyfriend on Tuesday. It was not a good And then sadly, she has a 20-year-old. He got hit by a car on that night and died. So it's been a rough week. 20 years old. He was a good kid. He was kind of the bright spot of her life. And it's been rough because she doesn't have a big support group, and my wife's been supporting her, hanging out over there, and it's been rough on everybody in essentially. So, but here we are. I'm here, ready to light things up, send them off, and we're going to talk about a few things. Pour one out for the homies. All right, there's a few things. One, the FBI came out with, I want to make sure this chat's going here. Let's go. LFG. Okay. I'm in the chat. Tyler's in the chat. That's about all we have. Okay, so there's a few things that came about this week, which is the FBI. I've gone back and forth with people because I think this is just astounding. Kash, Patel, Bongino, we did a whole episode on them and how I just think that, their previous life going on, things that they said, and then they come in there and they're completely different. And I actually had a back and forth with someone on Twitter today, and I think I'll bring that up. Here you go. Let's go to the can you see that okay? Maybe we need to do it this way. Where do we go? So Clint goes, I no longer trust Bongino. I've given him 100 days to deliver on his promises, and everything so far comes across as obfuscation and bullshit. There is massive criminality in the federal government, and until you start arresting people, I mean a lot of people, I don't trust you. Yeah. So with that in mind, there you go. Eddie Grimm's in here. I appreciate you popping in. With that in mind, what Clint's talking about here, you have an immediate, you have to go back. We've played, and I'm not going to do it, but we've played clips of the two of them going hard at the deep state, right? That's been their mantra since Trump lost in 2020. Deep state, deep state. Kash Patel says, I'm going to, the first day that I'm in, when I'm head of the FBI, I'm going to turn it into a museum of the deep state, quote unquote. Okay. That's what he said. Bongino has come out and said, how the Secret Service failed and all these things, just insinuating a complete bad stuff of the FBI, the CIA, all the bad stuff, associated with, Epstein, that they both have, JFK, J6, what else do we have here? List goes on and on, right? Then they get in there and they're like, nothing to see here. Nothing to see. There's nothing here. And you're just like, wait, what? Okay. Now, they've also said that there's incompetence going on, which is and we'll go to it because there's two things that are going to now reopen on. But prior to that, Epstein, they're saying, hey, there's a video now that this shows he didn't kill himself. You're like, okay, let's say what you're saying here is true. So this is so Lady Liberty, whoever that is, says, love you, Clint. I wish I could agree on this, although I completely understand your frustration and agree with you at an 80% rate. This is a bad call. I spent 40 years as a forensic accountant and financial analyst. So my most important find was an employee who embezzled $350,000 from a mid-sized California company. It took me 12 months to unravel that hornet's nest. It took another 2.5 years for the DA to successfully prosecute her. Eventually, she did 10 years in Chowchilla women's prison. That's 3.5 years from a basic run-of-the-mill embezzlement case without enemies circling like vultures over carrion. Now, I didn't respond to the point I'm going to make here, which is, yeah, but okay, I get it. So you're saying 100 days, give them time. The problem is they've already said nothing to see, case closed. So they're within 100 days, they're already proclaiming nothing to see. It's done. So your argument here, Lady Liberty, if that's exactly who you are, doesn't make any sense. Now, I'm then going hard here and I say, look what Kash and Dan have said prior to being placed in the FBI. They were over the top, hyperbolic, and now nothing. They have a horrible track record. Now, with these new revelations, okay, Tyler, you got to figure that. Why aren't they, that's what I meant, at least exposing those who lied? No video existed. They're just flashy TV pundits in high office. Okay, and I'm just walking through my tweets here because this is what we do. So yeah, that is something to wonder about. If you're saying there was no Epstein or no nothing here, nothing to see here, no J6, but you went so hard, and matter of fact, you said, Bongino said at the time, remember, like incompetence isn't tantamount to, when it's so wanton, it's tantamount to intent. Okay. But now that he's in there, he's like, well, no, there's nothing. But if there's people that were inept, if there's people that hid a video, if there's people that lied about a video, why are you at least not going after them? Okay. And maybe you're building a case. Anyway, so we go back and forth with this person. And this is the most amazing. Lady Liberty comes back and says, they were private citizens screaming from the roofs then. I have a whole lot of opinions, I say, and a whole lot of things I wouldn't say publicly anymore if my new job was to secure a conviction. If I did, I would be feeding the defense of those I am attempting to convict. And so I'm just like, so no need to be incredible in their public life, but we need to assume they're serious because FBI badge. Yeah. And so that's the point. If what you're saying is true is, oh, they're complete bullshit when they're out there, and they're not, I'm sorry, I should have said private life, but it's complete bullshit. And now now you're supposed to believe them. I'm not believing it at all. So, here we go. Now we got some chat coming in here. Well, welcome everybody. It looks like Brain Bucket says, just shut up and trust the plan, Tyler. Patriots in control. Good evening, Curtis, sir. Been on the course anymore? I'll get to that. I'm going. I played Friday, and then I played a Monday. I think I do a show after that. I think so. And I started to. I worked some things out much better. It was bad Friday. Monday was just as bad in the first 9. The last 9 started bad, and then I fixed some things that just went incredibly well. So I'm going Sunday. So I'm going to go back out Sunday. But I also need to do a few other things like run and maybe ride my bike and do a few things there as well. So anyway, that's one of the things you have going on with the FBI. And I'm with Clinton there. I'm just not totally trusting anything that's being said and or done on our behalf, I guess is what it would be. But then another thing came out today, and I thought this was, it's a big new involvement. Big new involvement here. And what is it? It is our buddy over there, system, I don't remember what he's called, but it's Glenn Greenwald. Okay. Glenn Greenwald that comes out. I have not seen the video, but evidently there's a video of him and he tweeted it out, I guess. I don't know if this is if he did it or whoever did it. Better than the 84 Monday. No, actually, it's what I shot again. Okay. So, I didn't do so much better, but I've got some problems that I'm working out, Curtis. I've got some problems I'm trying to work out and I'll get to them. All right. I figured them out. I think I'm figuring them out. My son is so into golf right now. It's a little crazy. And, he's 18 years old. So he's going crazy with it. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about this. So Glenn Greenwald, he's a gay man. He had a husband died. I don't know if it was AIDS related, cancer. Seems like it might be AIDS. I don't know. Moved down to Brazil, adopts 2 kids, gay. Okay. Now he does do good work, good, thorough journalist work. And I appreciate it. And I like his constitutional takes on a lot of things. He's as an attorney, good person for that, but he's a gay man. Okay. And when he's a gay man, you have to understand what he's already telling you about his life. Okay, so now this video comes out. His husband's dead. He wants to have some sexy times. So he, I don't know. I haven't watched the video. I've just seen the screenshot. It looks like he might be in a skirt, in some weird shirt. He's doing nasty deeds with a male prostitute. I guess he's paid for this a lot. And people are shocked about it. I even had Andy calling me today, and he's shocked about it. And I'm like, this is my take. This is my take here. Let's go here. Breaking: gay man has gay sex exactly how you would have imagined it. I'm not shocked at all. I think there's the category degenerate, and in that as a subset is probably gay. Okay, and you're gonna come after me? Fine, come after me. It's shocking to me that a man, and then he's filming it. All these things are happening, and I'm not shocked at all. Now, I'm not defending him in any way possible. I'm just like, I don't know what you thought. What did you imagine 2 gay men do? What do you imagine they do in the privacy of their bedroom? You can be as freaky as you want with your spouse, your girlfriend, whatever. If you're a male, if you're a girl, female, like same sex, you can be as freaky as you want, and you probably don't want those things getting out. But if they do, and it's with the right person, you're just like, what are you gonna do? Okay. First of all, why are you filming it? But if you're in your mind and you're watching a TV show and there's 2 gay dudes and they're kissing and you're like, oh, that's adorable. And then you go, I wonder what happens when they go back to the privacy of their bedroom. Oh, and you really, really think about it and you work your way through all the scenarios, it's not going to be pleasant. Okay. It's not going to be pleasant. And to most dudes, it's probably going to put a visceral bad taste in your mouth. So there you go. So let's just read what Glenn, actually, I don't know if you could read that enough. Let's actually read what he said here. He goes, last night, videos were released online depicting behavior in my private life. Some were distorted and others were not. Does he mean like the video wasn't, it wasn't 1080 or 4K? They were published without my knowledge or consent. Okay, so maybe he got hacked. And its publication was therefore criminal. Though we do not know yet exactly who is responsible, we are close to knowing, and the motive was maliciously political one. As for the content of the videos, I have no embarrassment or regret about them. The videos depict consenting adults engaged in intimate actions in their private lives. They all display fully consensual behavior, harming nobody. Obviously, it was uncomfortable and unpleasant when your private behavior is made public against your will. First of all, once again, why are you filming this shit if that's the case? That's why the behavior is private in the first place. But the only wrongdoing here is the criminal and malicious publication of the videos in an attempt to malign perceived political enemies and advance a political agenda. Others are, of course, free to their own judgments, as some are prone to do about others' private lives. It won't change my work. I will continue to make many prongs of my journalism and pursue the causes most important to me, exactly as before. But once again, not shocked, degenerate, full stop, don't have it. Okay, let's see what he gets real deep with his work. He really gets up in those guts for his job. Rectal trauma. Yeah, it's a tragic one. Let's fix this here. So all I'm saying is, now this, if you guys remember, Miss Gay, totally different type of subject, yet the same words. She was the president of Harvard, okay? And she got called before Congress, and when she got called before Congress, she testified, and she wasn't like lambasting pro-Palestinian or anti-Israel people, okay? And so the right wing and the Jews on the left and the left wing, they went crazy. And what's his name? He from Heritage Institute guy, Rufo. He went after her, as he does, and he found that she had done some, so she got dispelled from Harvard, and she did so because she had plagiarized something. And I had a whole show with Brian Williams of the Lions of Liberty fame, where he's like, sweet, this should happen. And I'm like, whoa, you're missing the big picture. Rufo's not going after her because she plagiarized. He went after her to find, this is the Russian thing of, show me a person and I'll show you the crime. That's what he was looking for. Now, am I crying for a Harvard president getting ousted? No, I'm not. I'm not crying for the Jewish students at Harvard either, okay? These are all privileged people in high area. I don't want anything to do with any of them, and I'm not going to be crying for them, okay? Because this is just shitty stuff that's going around that I think you're overblowing a lot of it. So she gets kicked out. Brian's like okay with it, and I'm pushing back saying, you've got to understand the reason this is happening. Now, I believe this is also the same reason and the same issue that's happening here with Glenn Greenwald, which is he's being targeted because he's been pretty boisterous and good about his take against Israel. Watch out, Piers Morgan. I don't know what you got in your bedroom. Now, Andy calls me, boy, Andy, and I don't have anything set up to take a phone call because he said he may call me in here. He calls me today and he's like, look, he's like, what about this thing? Oh, I brought it up actually. And then he's like, yeah, he's a degenerate. And I'm like, I'm not shocked. He's told you he was. He's gay. He married a man. He bought kids. Let's not be shocked by this. Now, Andy makes a good point, though. He's like, well, if he's that way in his personal life, what is he doing? Is he able to be, controlled? And I'm like, I don't know. So and by the way, I don't know about any of this. But my thinking is, if this comes out, and this is what came out, and this is the letter that Greenwald has put out, kind of like, as if for the content of this video, I have no embarrassment or regret. Well, how are you going to blackmail a guy that has no regret or embarrassment about videos like that? Okay. So I don't know if he's controlled. I don't know about any of that. I'm just flabbergasted. And maybe it's the schmoolies, which is a completely new and interesting part, which is it's the degeneracy of the schmoolies bringing out something like this to try to embarrass him, to have some power over him. I'm imagining that's the type of people we're looking at here, to have some control over him. And in fact, when you're doing that, you're actually saying a little bit about your own life, aren't you? That's the kind of stuff. I mean, Shmuley has the butt plugs and the sex toys and all that. But I mean, do as you will. Speaking of, JR said, cut the head off the snake. They'll make 2 more to replace it. Yes, it's actually true, but I don't know who's the snake in this scenario. People, I don't know. Okay, that's where we started off with that part. Did I have any more about that? I don't think so. Okay, I think we're looking good here. All right. So that's our thing on Greenwald. What do we have tonight? Let's just start off right away with this investigation. FBI reopens investigation into cocaine at White House, leaked Dobbs opinion. Now, I will start off with this. It feels like summer really hit here in Northern California today. It's 90, let's see what it is here, 97. Okay, 97 right now. And I came home and I turned the AC on. It's not, something's going on right now. And sometimes that happens the first real kick of the summer. And I was like, wait, it's been working. So I'm a little concerned as of this moment of how long I can go without burning my ass off here. But here we are. Probably got a double header in if you want, know what I mean. Hey-o. Okay. So let's start. I have different takes on this stuff too. Okay. The White House reopens investigation into cocaine. and leaked Dobbs opinion. All right. First of all, I want to say, it feels like the FBI is just doing bullshit. Now, they did come out today and they said, look, we caught someone in one of the government agencies trying to sell secrets to a friendly nation, where he said he's not happy with the way things are going in the U.S. He wants to join their country. He looks very, very Jewish, I'll just say. But they wouldn't name the country. And I'm just like, oh, of course. And by the way, if you just name the country, things just go away, right? But you don't name it, and then we find out later, or it looks exactly like it, like his hair is all matted in the back because he used to, he typically wears a little hat. You're just like, why do you do this to us? Why do you try to gaslight us? It's so embarrassing. Have you cleaned your condenser coils? What do you think I'm doing? No, I haven't. I don't think I've cleaned my condenser coils. That might be something I need to go do. Maybe I'll go clean my condenser coils. That sounds like something our buddy Glenn Greenwald would gladly do for free. Hey, buddy, can I clean your coils? All right, let's play this little clip here. There we go.
Secret Service has confirmed white powder found at the White House is cocaine. Now they're trying to determine how the drugs ended up in the West Wing. White House correspondent Karen Travers joins me now for more. Karen, the big question is who brought this cocaine into the White House? So what do we know right now, and how's the White House responding?
Yeah, the Secret Service, Diane, is looking into that. They do not have that answer right now, but they are looking through visitors' logs of who might have been here at the White House over the weekend, as well as surveillance video, to see if they could determine who left that bag that did contain cocaine inside a cubby, inside an entrance of the West Wing where visitors do come through. Secret Service said yesterday that it was confirmed to be cocaine. They continue now to investigate to figure out how it got inside the White House complex, inside that entrance, and who brought it. The White House yesterday did not answer any questions about this, very much punting to the Secret Service, but the White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said that the president very much would like to see the Secret Service get to the bottom of this.
Meanwhile, President Biden is heading to South Carolina today to tout his economic policies. What can we expect there?
Yeah, Bidenomics. That's the phrase of the day, and it's something we're
Okay, that's a little hilarious to see at the end there. But what I want to get to is, that's the one issue, cocaine. Is this what the FBI really needs to get to, is the bottom of who brought cocaine into the White House? Now, were kids involved? I did see today that a whole issue, and maybe we'll play this at the end, or maybe we'll do a members only stream and we'll play some stuff, which is Matt at the internet, Kiwi Farms guy, trying to get the body cam footage of Nick Rekieta, and there's a stall, there's a bit, it's fascinating, and he can explain it, and I'm not going to go into it too much. But when things are in evidence, they are now open to the public when they've been entered in as evidence. And so the body cam's been entered in as evidence, so they requested to get it. The sheriff wasn't complying. So he's going through other routes. He's like, there's a court order that you're supposed to get it. And the judge is like, I don't need, then the sheriff's like, I don't care. I'm still not doing it. So then you have to go through these other mechanisms, which is you go to the state, one of these commissions, and you get a letter from them saying, yes, you filed it with them, and that he must comply. And if they don't comply, now you go to court. The sheriff's department would have to pay all your attorney's fees, like they would give a shit, because it just comes out of the government coffers. So they went and did that, and the sheriff said, fine, I'll get it to you by the 2nd of June. Then the DA, or whomever, the prosecutor, files a motion to, I think it was nunc-pro-tunc, which is as of before, to have these documents declared as not in evidence, so they are no longer public. The judge, boom, the very next day signed, I think it was yesterday or today, signs off on it, and they're not subject to the being disclosed now. So Maddie's like, oh, fuck that, we're gonna go forward and try to do this anyway. With that in mind, when they were public, well, when they were in evidence, before they released them, because they have to redact them, they would allow you to come and watch. So he had 3 people go in there and watch them, not 2 different cams, and took notes. So he was reading the notes from this. I need to have this. We need to have this video. I know how everyone else feels about it. We have to have this Rekieta video, for at least for one thing, which is juxtapose the video, the dirt, because it looks like it is just a mess. Okay, like a complete mess. It's so really disgusting. and then juxtapose it with Robert Barnes and Viva Frei and their stupid factual statements they don't know shit about how saying, oh, you know, there's a toy on the floor, you know, he's got a little shadow on his face. It's not cocaine. Those two losers, we need to deface them as much as possible with the actual video. So that would be actually fantastic. Okay, cocaine at Rekieta's, easy. We need the video. Cocaine at the White House, we don't have a video, but the FBI is going to reopen that. In addition, they're also going to reopen the Citizens United, no, it wasn't Citizens United case, it was the Dobbs decision, which overturned the Roe v. Wade just a few years ago, the Supreme Court. But before Justice Roberts' decision came out, there was a leaked decision, the leaked one. Now, the actual leaked version and the actual version were very close, so it was somewhat the same. So they are also looking into who leaked the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization decision, which led to overturning the Roe v. Wade in 2022, sending abortion rights decisions down to the state level. The Supreme Court's investigative authority looked into the leak, but couldn't determine who the leaker was. The opinion was written by Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito and was leaked by Politico on Alito, not Roberts, on May 2, 2022. Though over 100 employees at the Supreme Court were interviewed in an internal investigation, no justices were interviewed, and the court could not determine who leaked the opinion. Congressional, I don't know about who had the motives or what the motives would be. You can think of like, oh, so it's going to go against us. Maybe it's the dissenting part, right? The justices that were on the dissenting side. Maybe they were doing it to try to rile things up, maybe political opinion, or maybe have Congress like write some change of laws or something. I don't know. Or did the other side want to do it to soften the blow a bit? Now, it was coming before the election, so I think maybe that had some things to do with it. In May 2022, and it did, right? Well, at least the midterms here. Yesterday's unprecedented leak is an attempt to severely damage the Supreme Court, then House Majority Whip Steve Scalise said at the time. This clearly coordinated campaign to intimidate and obstruct the justice of the United States Supreme Court and its independence in our political system from upholding the Constitution must be immediately investigated by the court. So this is, I know when BLM was hitting its high points, all right, there in the summer of love, 2020, I heard, several podcasts about policing and, different techniques. Now, Camille Foster, he's of the We the Fifth Column podcast. He had done a video and a breakdown. There was this one kid that was coming home, gets pulled over by the police. He's right in his own yard. Shit went down and he gets killed, right? So they want an investigation done. And the police investigate it and they're like, all good here. Now, nothing made sense. And so this dad kind of pushed back. He was an airline pilot. And he's like, well, when there's an accident, the airline, let's say it's Southwest, they don't investigate it. They have the separate FAA comes in and they do their own investigation, right? They do the investigation to figure out what happened. Why we need something like that with the police. The police can't just be investigating. This is kind of what happened here. The Supreme Court went, well, let's take a look. Nope, nothing to see here. And that's what you have a lot of times, right? Internal affairs, they're really tough on their own police. I'm sure they are, right? Now, you see in Karen Reed trial, they did get, rid of this guy, Proctor, but I mean, you had to at this point. Pipe bombing case occurred when 2 explosive devices were placed outside the Democratic National Committee, Republican National Committee offices on Washington, D.C. on a day before a pro-Trump mob staged a January 6th attack at the U.S. Capitol. The FBI has offered a $500,000 reward for information leading to the identification and arrest of the person. So anyway, that's that part too. The case has vexed law enforcement and was talking point at FBI Director Kash Patel. Even before he assumed this post to the head of the FBI, law enforcement has been unable to find out who placed the devices despite video evidence of the incidents. Yeah, that look, this is ABC News writing this up. That's pretty interesting. So anyway, those are your 2-ish things that the FBI is now going to investigate. So I just thought we would walk through them a bit ourselves and take a look at a more subdued time, a time in our lives where, let's double check this here. so we can see the news, how they reported it at the time, and we'll go from there. Okay, let's go.
Entry, go to the
Now, this is press secretary panics when asked about cocaine found at the White House. I'm not going to play this whole 10-minute interview, people. Don't worry about that. But let's go here a little bit.
holiday. Can you give any more details on where the Secret Service found cocaine in the West Wing and how it got there?
So, as you know, this is under the purview of the Secret Service. They are currently investigating what happened over the weekend. So, I would have to refer you to the Secret Service on all of this. But one thing that I can share, that I'll share a little bit more information. As you know, the president and the first lady and their family were not here this weekend, as you all reported on this, and as you also know that they left on Friday and returned just yesterday. Where this was discovered is a heavily traveled area where many White House, West Wing, I should be even more specific, West Wing visitors come through this particular area. I just don't have anything more to share. It is under investigation by the Secret Service. This is in their purview, and so we're going to allow certainly the investigation to continue, and we have confidence that the Secret Service will get to the bottom of this. Go ahead.
The president said, hey, let's get to the bottom of what happened here.
Well, I just said that we have confidence that the Secret Service is going to get to the bottom of this. As you all know, the president followed.
Well, first of all, in hindsight, they didn't. Okay, so I know what you're... Look, this is the same Secret Service that was trying to protect Trump, right? And out there in Butler. The same Secret Service that Dan Bongino said their ineptitude was so bad, it was tantamount to intent. Okay? Same Secret Service.
All the reporting here, and he certainly was briefed by his staff on everything that we know so far. But the Secret Service is investigating what happened over the weekend, and we have confidence that they will get to the bottom of this. Okay.
Thanks, Breen. Just two quick follow-ups. You said the president has been briefed on the cocaine that was found at the White House. Is the White House conducting its own?
Has he tried it? Does he know? Does he know what kind of cut it is? Is it a good? Has Hunter Biden tested it to make sure it's pure?
Internal investigation.
This is something that's under the purview of the Secret Service. They're the ones who handle this investigation, so it lives in their purview, in their world.
And then just a quick follow-up on this type of tour. Can you explain to the American people who would have access to the West Wing on this type of tour and what kind of protocols are in place?
So look, when it comes to security protocol, that's something that the Secret Service certainly is going to handle.
Can you
so
just answer
that is
the
a
fucking
question for them. When it comes to visitors to the West Wing, they come for many reasons. Obviously, we do have West Wing tours that occur here on campus. They happen in this particular past couple of days. They happen on Friday, they happen on Saturday and Sunday. The times that they do not happen is when there's a federal holiday, like yesterday, there was not a West Wing tour, and also when there's a large White House event. So I don't have anything more to share on the particulars. Again, when it comes to security, when it comes to anything of those types of protocols, that is something that Secret Service handles.
Okay, let me. I'm just taking a guess. I have not done a tour in the White House. I would suspect that if you're taking a tour in the White House, you're showing ID, they're taking your name. You're not just going to go in there randomly, okay? You're just not going to get a random tour at the White House. Not going to happen. So they have a list of whoever went through the White House that day, okay? So you can at least start checking these people. Who left a bag of cocaine? Now, it makes it sound like it left in a cubby in a tour, and someone's just like, oh, I just came from the happy-go-lucky Washington, D.C. Ferry Ground cocaine factory. We got a free bag of coke. I'm just going to leave it in this cubby, and then I forget it. I mean, you got to be really by the way, if you're so blitzed out that you're leaving your bag of coke, okay, reverse field a little bit, reading back to the Ricada, reading where Maddie is reading some of the breakdown of viewing the body cam footage. Nick Ricada had complained and said, look, they didn't have reason to go into one of my safes where they found cocaine. Evidently, they find a safe. They find this safe. The bag of cocaine is sticking out of the closed safe. They test that baggie. It tests positive for cocaine. They're like, open it up. And Kayla's like, I mean, no, the combo. So they break it open. Now, it said with a crowbar and a hammer, and they got it open pretty quick. I'm like, okay, what kind? Is this one of these kids safes? I mean, my safe would take it would take more than a crowbar and a hammer to get into it. So they got it. Anyway, the coke is sticking out there. Who besides Nick, was Nick at the White House that day? Maybe. Who besides Nick would leave a bag of cocaine on a tour? So this whole and that's why they don't find it, because it's not someone who took the tour. Because you obviously are going to have record of who took the tour, and that's not going to be the case. Okay. Secret Service concludes investigation on cocaine. Let's play this one here.
It has closed its investigation into the discovery of a baggie of cocaine left in the lobby of the White House. The law enforcement agency says no surveillance video footage could point them to any leads, and not even advanced fingerprint or DNA analysis could help them determine who actually left it there. Our Jay O'Brien, who covers the Hill, joining us for more. So, Jay, what else is the Secret Service saying about its investigation?
Yeah, and lawmakers up here on the Hill had a closed-door briefing on this from the Secret Service earlier today. Now, as to what the Secret Service is saying about that closed investigation, this is similar to what they told lawmakers, according to lawmakers who spoke to ABC News after they emerged from that meeting. The Secret Service putting out this statement, and they said a little bit of what you just alluded to, Kira, which is because that there was not enough physical evidence, they were not able to nail down whose cocaine this was. A little bit from that statement, it goes, without physical evidence, the investigation will not be able to single out a person of interest from the hundreds of individuals who had passed through the vestibule where the cocaine was discovered, saying that that part of the White House where this cocaine was discovered was a vestibule that hundreds of people had access to. And because of that and the lack of security cameras and other physical evidence, the Secret Service closed.
Wait, you're telling me a tour area of the White House doesn't have cameras either? I'm maybe it's true, and then maybe the incompetent. I mean, this is just cocaine. I don't give a shit who this is, because we're going to play some. It's Hunter Biden. We know this. Now it might be someone else, and we're going to play some clips and some other stories about people in the White House and degeneracy. And are people really worked up over this? Are they? Now the right wing is, because we gotta get to the bottom of who was doing the cocaine in the White House. And I'm like, you sure you want to know that of every incident of someone doing coke in the White House? You think, that, you know, as an example, we just talked about Glenn Greenwald and the shit he's doing, literally. What is it? You think he was part of the Christian Coalition? And that to me is at least an aspect there. You look and you go like, he's not professing to be, he's a gay guy. He's professing to do exactly what you saw him do, in a dress and a weird shirt, banging a male prostitute. I'm shocked, okay? Now, is it someone else that's, you know, preaching family values, Kristi Noem or one of these others, or Nancy Mace, who we just walked through last week, accusing this guy of rape? I found more stuff about that case, by the way. She is so fucking she's lost it. Okay, let's keep going.
Closing this investigation without naming whose drugs these were.
So the Secret Service is saying that several hundred individuals may have accessed this particular area. Does the lack of evidence in this case that you just described,
were any of them Nick Rekieta's kids? Because they have,
you know, raise any concern now about potential security threats?
Well, Republicans here on Capitol Hill are talking about all of that, and they are drawing a lot of attention to this case specifically. And that's one of the points of concern we've heard from Republicans about how this pulls back the curtain on what are potential other concerns about White House safety. I asked Speaker Kevin McCarthy about that and about a number of things as it relates to this case. Here's a little bit of what he told me.
Are you saying, Mr. Speaker, that you don't believe the Secret Service? What I don't believe is, how can they not answer the question? I think I'm saying the same thing every other American is answering. It's in a cubbyhole in the White House by the Situation Room, and you can't tell me who put it there?
So a fiery reaction there from the speaker. What preceded those comments was he was talking about what Republicans here on the Hill often refer to as what they call a two-tier justice system, alluding to the fact that Republicans believe that the White House and the president are getting preferential treatment in this investigation. Oh, another point, just to fact check the speaker there, he says it was in a cubby near the Situation Room. Our sources tell us it was in a cubby that members of the general public typically have access to when they leave their phones and other devices in those cubbies before they go through the West Wing. It's not like it was outside the Situation Room. But those comments from Speaker McCarthy giving the broad...
Okay, let's talk about that part real quick. So let's assume, first of all, Kevin McCarthy getting so worked up over this. Go fuck yourself. I wish you would get worked up over anything useful. I'm sorry. And you're like, oh, Tyler, you're such a degenerate. You're not worried about, you know, cocaine in public in the White House? No. Sorry, I'm not. I'm more, I mean, yeah, Nick Rekieta's house with kids around, sure. Are there kids around in these tours? Maybe. But let's say you go to a comedy show, right? You're going to Kill Tony, okay? You're going to Kill Tony, you're going to Dave Chappelle, whomever, you're going there. and they say you can't take your phone in, are you just dropping your phone at a spot and walking in, and then when you come out saying that's mine, and they like, this one? Yeah, that's mine. No, there's a system involved. You get something in exchange to turn it back in, that is your phone. Are you telling me this is a cubby where people just randomly throw their phones in there? Maybe this cup. So if that's the case, if there's some sort of thing that ties the phones to the, can't you figure out whose products these are? And who's like, I'm checking in my phone. Let me see here. I got some chapstick. Here's my wife's car key. Oh, here's a baggie of Coke. This belies common sense. And then, by the way, this is how you should be reading your news and listening to stuff and things they say, and try to think about it, because you're like, oh, it's complete bullshit. I'm sorry, it's complete bullshit. And so I get the Kevin McCarthy getting upset about this preferential treatment, but it's only because it was a before election. You needed to really skewer Hunter Biden. He was already in the news. He was getting through the ringer. You know, the Ukraine stuff with paying and the money in the China, and Biden's money, you know, the big guy and all that stuff. That wasn't taken seriously. So I get when they have cocaine like this, and you've got to make a big deal about it, because it's the only ground you can make, which is, oh, cocaine in the White House. Let's say they turned it and it was, I don't know, Jill Biden's, right? You'd be like, okay, that would be maybe something bad, but because she's really was the president, not Joe. But if it was Hunter's, you'd be like, of course, it was Hunter's. Okay, so now what? Am I not gonna? You think these rabid lefties aren't still gonna vote for brain dead Joe Biden? What was worse, the fact that he was brain dead and it was obvious, or the fact that you know what? Now I'm not gonna vote for him because there's cocaine. This is just a dumb theatrical game. But let's keep playing it.
Other theme of what Republicans have said up here on the Hill, which is that they still have deep concerns, despite the fact that the Secret Service has closed this investigation.
Any other reaction from lawmakers on the Hill?
One of the things we heard from lawmakers, Kira, who emerged from that closed-door briefing this morning, is that they are not satisfied with what the Secret Service told them. And that's something that you frequently hear from lawmakers when they emerge from any kind of a briefing. But they are very much in lockstep with Speaker McCarthy, particularly Republicans here, especially Republicans, who want more detail from the Secret Service. And they are skeptical to the notion that the Secret Service was not able to identify a suspect. That comment earlier from the Speaker that we just played you a little bit of, saying that he is skeptical that the Secret Service could not nail down a suspect in this case. That is what we've heard from Republicans across the board here, some of whom got that closed-door briefing this morning.
All right, Jay O'Brien, thanks for trying to grab the Speaker there as well. It's always perfect timing with you. That always seems to happen.
Okay, you guys in your little banter, fine. What is interesting is, with that, Secret Service, it's the police, right? Which is the FBI. They're the deep state. They're the most corrupt. They can't. Preferential treatment. Now Trump's in power. If you were to come up with some sort of claim like that, McCarthy and all these, they would be like, "How dare you? They are the most patriotic." And you see this online just by the fact that what we started out with the Clint Russell's tweet there, and me joining in, and Lady Liberty. I mean, let's be honest. Is it lady? I don't know. Coming to the defense of Kash and them, and like, you don't understand. They've got to be deceptive when they're in private, and now when they're in the public sphere, it's a completely different thing. And it's like, okay, okay, you guys are cracking me up. Now, cocaine in the White House. What is this a big deal? It's happened before, or at least close to it. Let's go here. I need the memory thing going here. David Cross, tell us about it.
In David Cross's surprising confession. Rumors and speculation have been swirling for the last several years that the Arrested Development star snorted cocaine during the White House Correspondents' Dinner back in 2009, with President Obama sitting just feet away. Cross is now setting the record straight in a recent interview for Playboy magazine, saying, "I did cocaine in the same room as the president. I'm not proud of it, nor am I ashamed of it." The comedian also said that he snorted the drug during the dinner.
Wait, let's go back here, because he goes, let's finish that quote. "My one regret is that I got my girlfriend, actress Amber Tamblyn, in trouble by association."
I'm not proud of it, nor am I ashamed of it. The comedian also said that he snorted the drug during the dinner not because he needed a fix, but rather instead to be able to actually say that he used the illegal substance in such close proximity to the president. Cross also went on to reveal that he snorted the drug under the dinner table, and that it wasn't even that much cocaine. His only regret, his girlfriend, actress Amber Tamblyn, was permanently banned from the White House as a result of the incident, although Cross claims that she was not even aware of his actions during the dinner.
Could have sworn he was gay.
Ken Lombardi, CBSNews.com, New York.
There you go. So it's not. My point in this is it doesn't have to be Hunter Biden. There's a lot of other degenerates out there that it can be. Now I listened to. I'm trying to remember what show I was listening to, and it could have been like a Tom Woods or something like that, and they were mentioning how it's gonna. Maybe it was Tucker. It might have been Tucker, one of those. And they were talking about how maybe, just keep going with this, maybe it was Michael Malice and Brett Weinstein talking about how Denny Hastert had diddled kids. And you'd think that would be a golden nugget for the Democrats to bring up constantly. Yeah, but you guys had Speaker of the House banging kids and then trying to make, structured payments about this. Listen, that's something that's there. So there's degeneracy all over the place. And I think we'll just play a little clip of this one because I think it's important to remember these kind of things.
Breaking news, Denny Hastert, the former Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, has been indicted on federal criminal charges, according to court documents. Hastert is accused of covering up big cash withdrawals he was making, allegedly to be used as hush money to pay off someone he had wronged. Congressional correspondent Nancy Cordes.
Okay, and this was part of the, I think it was Malice. This is part of the discussion around this too, which is the left doesn't do it because they're just as bad. They have their own people that are just as bad and probably more than so. And we're going to play another one here of the similar kind of stuff. Wrongdoing, you mean he was banging kids in high school and then they were blackmailing him and he was paying him off. Wrongdoing, that's how you're going to put it. And this is the, who is this doing this? This is CBS News here. This is not your Fox trying to downplay something to a Republican. This is let's see how bad, because I haven't watched this, by the way. I just found a clip, 2 minutes, Denny Hastert, fine, boom, boom, boom. We'll click a bit in here and we'll react to it live. So let's see how bad they actually treat him. Let's go.
Has the latest.
Hastert served as Speaker for 8 years, from 1999 to 2007.
By the way, he's coming down those stairs and someone's saying, take them two at a time. I don't know what that means, other than I don't think he's too big. I think he's too big to take steps.
But
Let's go back
served as Speaker for 8 years, from 1999 to 2007. But it's what he's done since that caught the attention of the FBI. According to the federal indictment, back in 2010, John Dennis Hastert agreed to provide someone referred to only as Individual A $3.5 million in order to compensate for and conceal his prior misconduct against Individual A. The indictment doesn't say what that misconduct was, but it notes that the two have known each other for most of Individual A's life, and that the individual is from the same Illinois town where Hastert was a high school teacher and wrestling coach from 1965 to 1981. From 2010 to 2012, Hastert made 15 $50,000 withdrawals of cash from his local bank in Illinois and gave them to Individual A. But when bank representatives questioned Hastert in 2012, he began withdrawing cash in increments of less than $10,000 because banks are required to report anything larger. Hastert, who succeeded Newt Gingrich as Speaker, has worked as a lobbyist since leaving office. By the end of last year, Hastert had withdrawn more than $1.7 million, which earned him a visit from FBI investigators. He told the agents, "Yeah, I kept the cash. That's what I'm doing," explaining that he did not feel safe with the banking system.
Right.
The indictment says that's a false statement, punishable by up to 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine if he's convicted. Hastert is also charged, Charlie, with structuring currency withdrawals, which carries similar penalties.
Okay, so I mean, I guess they're trying to go a little somewhat easy on him there by saying, we don't really know what the. So you got a degenerate, right? You got a degenerates on both sides. So my point is, it's such hyperbole, right? Hyperbolic hypocrisy. There we go. Like even the former speakers and stuff getting all worked up over this about cocaine in the White House, and this is the kind of shit you have going on. But it gets worse. It gets worse, which is Madison Cawthorn claims of orgy cocaine invites draw disbelief. Now, after this guy did this, he was pretty much run out of Congress. So let's do
orgies and cocaine. Those claims are drawing a lot of disbelief after a North Carolina congressman made them. Good evening, everyone. I'm Rod Carter.
I'm Angela Taylor. Madison Cawthorn's comments have drawn criticism from his own party before. CBS 17's Russ Bowen joins us. And Russ, who was he referring to?
Well, his colleagues in Congress. He didn't name names, but even so, it's enough to draw ire from the...
I'm going to block this. Will he be convicted? Are you talking about Hastert? Because I think that happened a long time ago, and I'm pretty sure he went to prison for that. But yeah, let's keep going. Whoops.
People who work alongside him.
To implicate your colleagues in orgies, and not just cocaine, but key bumps of cocaine, a phrase that frankly I had to Google before I even really knew what it meant. So this was a new one even for Madison Cawthorn.
What political scientist Chris Cooper, who lives in Madison Cawthorn's congressional district, is referring to is a podcast and video where Cawthorn was asked whether the Netflix show House of Cards is closer to a documentary. Cawthorn went on to claim he'd been invited by fellow lawmakers to orgies and watched them use cocaine. Both North Carolina...
Okay, so with that in mind, now he was a Republican, North Carolina Republican. Was he being invited by the Democrats? That's pretty risky, right? Reach across the aisle to come and steam it up with us, do some Nick Rekieta stuff. That's pretty risky because what if he calls it out like he is, right? Or is it just so well known that you're just all pieces of shit? Now, was he rolling through his wheelchair in the White House that day, drop some coke? Was one of those people? We just always, this is the point I'm getting at with this. We assume it is Hunter Biden, right? We're just like, oh, it's Hunter Biden, cocaine, that has to be the one. His dad's in the White House, must be Hunter, and the Republicans, it could be almost fucking anybody, right? It could be almost anybody. Madison Cawthorn is just breaking the wall down here, which he's been doing, you're crazy if you don't think it's a bunch of degenerates. It could be, the Nancy Maces up there.
Senators Tom Tillis and Richard Burr have criticized the comments, as have other Republican
Why would you criticize the comments? This blows me away. He's literally a whistleblower in the Congress, and they're like, oh, how can he say these things? Well, did it not happen? Are you calling him a liar? Or are you saying, how dare you speak out against, we should circle the wagons?
Who typically remain silent, like Arkansas Congressman Steve Womack.
I think it goes without saying that no one thinks this was a good thing to say. Today, I can't even believe that Madison Cawthorn would think this is a good thing to say. It sounds like he got dressed down by McCarthy, and I rarely say this, but in this case, I think it was well deserved.
Why? Why would it be? Who is this motherfucker saying that? So you're literally saying, look, I'm in Congress. We're here to make laws, and we're trying to, a lot of moral people. I'm on the right, and I'm saying I was invited to do orgies and cocaine, and it blows me away. And this guy's like, speaking out of turn here, buddy.
Down comes
That's Eddie Grimm. My kids are sleeping over at a friend's. I ate a Hot Pocket for the first time in like a decade. Still pretty good for slop. Yeah, I love Jim Gaffigan's whole thing about Hot Pockets, how it's just like lava, and it doesn't matter how long you cooked it, it's going to just burn, incinerate the inside of your mouth. Always. Hot Pockets.
Less than a week after Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy responded to Cawthorn calling Ukrainian President Zelensky a thug.
Madison is wrong. If there's any thug in this world, it's Putin.
And his video has been released of one of several times that Cawthorn has been pulled over for speeding and cited for driving while his license was revoked.
Okay, a dude can't feel his asshole. No wonder he gets invited to political orgies. Okay, since we do a lot of legal stuff here, there is a situation. If you go through what negligence, okay? Someone did something and someone got injured and yeah, you sue them, and one of the torts you do is negligence, okay? It goes through what is your duty, you know, what kind of person is this? Is it a doctor? Is it just a regular person? Is it a regular, reasonable person standard type of thing? And then one of the little aspects you now analyze there is there a statute violated pertaining to this situation? Okay, so as an example, it would be something you can argue one way or another, like person is driving without with an expired license, okay, driver's license, and then they see a crowd up there, they're Darrell Brooks, and they just fly through the crowd, and maybe it was negligence, so you're suing them on negligence standards. Does the fact that he didn't have a license really pertain to the fact, would it have made a difference? That is more along the lines of, hey, I'm hiring a welder, and this guy was supposed to be certified. He claimed he was. He never went through the whole thing. And there's a local statute that says you have to be certified. So that has to be associated with that. This cracks me up. This guy is blaming people for saying, look, orgies and whatnot. Now, if you had a video of him out here on the road, banging dudes in an orgy and doing coke, I'd be like, okay, maybe he's not credible. It's literally, what did they say they have video of? Let's back it up just a tad bit here.
Madison is wrong. If there's any thug in this world, it's Putin.
And his video has been released of one of several times that Cawthorn has been pulled over for speeding and cited for driving while his license was revoked.
Now, does that mean his license was revoked and he was speeding? Does that mean that he's not telling the truth about orgies, right? When we go through law, you have to get your law license and you have to go through a background check, or there's issues you maybe have in court, and there's issues of veracity and truthfulness, okay? So if you've had a conviction on something, perhaps it's like one of our classmates had a bunch of federal charges against him for fraud with property. Now, did he ever get his license, his law license? No. He didn't, but he married the valedictorian, so he's got it fine taken care of. But I also had a legal case that I had to get extra, go through extra hoops to get my law license, because any legal aspects you have to do. What was mine? Mine was a divorce. Okay, that's not an issue of truthfulness and veracity. So these things make a difference here. Let's keep going.
What do you do with this if you're one of the other candidates, whether you're a D or an R in the 11th district running in this primary?
There are 7 people that are running against Madison Cawthorn, so 8 total in the primary, and all 7 are trying to portray themselves as more mature, more grown up, and better decision makers than Madison Cawthorn.
Taller.
Clearly, this is going to make that an easier proposition.
And without a doubt, guys, I imagine we're going to see some of this in some of those ads that have reached all across the state.
What would the ad be? I would not get invited to an orgy. I would not be invited to do cocaine. I am way too boring.
At this point, for his part, so far, Madison Cawthorn has not commented. Guys.
This is wild.
Very interesting stuff there, Russ.
Not every day those 2 words are the first out of your mouth. That's for sure.
Not here on the news. All right.
That's what he had to say, his mouth. Let's go. Let's check in with the chat here, going up here. Interestingly enough, Hot Pocket. Oh, wait, let's go here. Hot Pocket is one of Glenn Greenwald's nicknames. Solid. All through high school, I worked as a paralegal assistant and file retrieving monkey, and it was pretty fun. Well, okay, maybe if you're ever out in my direction, LOL, let me know. Maybe you could do some work for me. Didn't do much for my impression of Jews. Okay. Hi, Redneck. Hi, Alan. Welcome, JC, to the chat. He's always our favorite. I'm pretty pumped up that I can use my legs. Okay, you guys are definitely the best. Okay. Man, I don't think the AC kicked on. I don't think it did. So here's my deal. It's I'm going to keep going because I think I started this show off on a little dire note, which is a friend of ours, their 20-year-old son, Tuesday night. Someone ran a red light. He did, or the other guy did. The first, it was the accusation was, and it was actually a classmate of his. Okay, so he's been 2 years out of high school. Nice kid, pretty responsible. Had been going to Topgolf, dropped a friend off, was going back home. He's a good, really good kid. And the first thought was that this other person was doing like 80 miles an hour. There's the rumors, 80 miles an hour, ran a red light. Then this person was drunk, but now we're hearing like, no, they did a sobriety test, perfectly fine. But someone ran a red light at 12:30 in the morning, and the kid died. So it's pretty traumatic. My wife is helping her out. I mean, just kudos to my amazing wife. So, someone's got to be doing some things. This person's just, imagine that your son, your 20-year-old son, love of your life, beacon, you don't have maybe a lot of good things going on. And this is one bright spot, and that, tragic. That's horrible, right? So my wife's over there. She's going to actually spend the night over there. So I'm homeless. I'm kidless. There's no kids here either. My other son flew up to Washington to spend the week with my other son. He's going to ghost him. The oldest is nursing, and the youngest is going up there going to be able to follow him around the hospital and see if maybe they're going to go shooting their guns. They're going to go golfing. They're having boys' time. My daughter is house sitting. I'm alone. I've got dogs and chickens. So we're going to keep cruising along here, folks. As long as I can handle it with the AC. I do have to, at some point, head out and feed the chickens and feed the animals. But anyway, let's talk about more degeneracy, because that's what we're all about tonight. What else do we have? Not just the right. We also have the left. Anthony Weiner, sexting people. Remember, he was married to Amadou, what's her name? And she was the assistant to Hillary Clinton. A lot of weirdness tied in there. Let's keep going.
Race one more time. Anthony Weiner claimed to be a changed man after he resigned Congress in the wake of a sexting scandal, but it turns out the sexting did not stop. In an extraordinary news conference late yesterday, Weiner said that wouldn't force him out of the mayor's race in New York, and ABC's Jeff Zeleny is here with all the details. And Jeff, Weiner's wife, Huma Abedin, there to back him up. But this morning, 3 of his opponents and 2 major newspapers saying enough is enough.
That's right, George. It was quite an extraordinary scene. It was a real human drama when his wife stepped forward to...
Okay, let's take care of some AC problems here. I'll go out and I'll clean the coils. I promise I will bring back it. Okay, I'll do that. I'll check that out. Damn, smoked by your own classmate. Yeah, that's pretty rough. That's really rough. Clean the coils. Okay, I'll clean the coils. How old are your children, if you don't mind saying, Tyler? I've got 16, 13, and 8 so far. I'm in a much better position. First child, oldest, he's 25. He'll be 26 next month. So it's boy, girl, boy. Okay, boy, there. Girl, 22. Okay, she's down in San Diego. I'm not gonna give too much info. Then the next one is a girl. She's 20. She's sophomore in college. So there's 3 in college because the oldest is gone. And then the youngest is 18. And he's a boy. He's up there visiting the 25. They're brothers. They're tight. Our kids are tight. The 2 middles, no. So the top 2 oldest, no. My biological children are number 1 and 3, and then I adopted 2 and 4. Okay, and our kids are super tight. And anyway, that's my situation. Thanks for asking. My want to say as a nurse, unless he's sucking titties for. Did I say nurse or did I say nurse? He's a nurse. I mean, this is what's fascinating. Okay, you're 18 years old, you're gonna go into college, and you've got to make a decision that's for the rest of your life, your career. It's tough. So my son, my oldest, he's like, look, I want a good lifestyle. I think I can help people, and I'm pretty smart, and I want a job that's whatever. So he went into nursing, comes out immediately making 6 figures, like he got a job, multiple offers before graduation, and it's like plug and play. It's like he's like, I'll take this hospital, this place, this salary. It was crazy. And he had some student loans because our kids were paying their way through school, and he's going to have it paid off in 2 years because he's making a decent amount of money. And his fiance just got engaged. She's also a nurse. It's a pretty sweet gig. Now, I have a lot of clients that are nurses as well. They make good money. It's probably better than being a doctor at this point. Pretty good hours, especially if you're young, don't have kids. I mean, he works nights, so he's got the day, he does stuff. I think it's a pretty good deal. So good for him. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying here, Rootless. How old are you? I'm 54. You guys keep you said my other son is nursing and going to watch. Okay. Kudos. Nursing is good after. Yeah. By the way, my son or his fiance. By the way, they were both really based. Neither one of them are doing TikTok videos. So that's pretty, my son is nursing. My son is he's a. I don't know why I find that so funny. If you guys needed gunsmithing advice, hit me up. I will do that. My son just got a new. Oh, you look great, Tyler. Thank you. My son just bought a new shotgun. I got a new Mossberg. It was actually from my father-in-law who passed away. But what did my son get? It's the, I'll have to think about it. It's a semi-auto. It's pretty sweet. It was like $1,000 shotgun. What am I? I can't. Whatever. We'll come to it. Let's keep going here with this.
Deliver a very public testimonial in hopes of stopping her husband for another political freefall.
I have said that other texts and photos were likely to come out, and today they have.
The scene was familiar. Anthony Weiner back in front of a microphone, admitting involvement in another sexting scandal.
There is no question that what I did was wrong.
What's different, though, is that he's no longer a congressman. He's running for mayor of New York City. And
Weiner.
This time, his wife, Huma, Hillary Clinton's former aide, is standing by his side and speaking out.
You'll have to bear with me because I'm very nervous. And I wrote down what I wanted to say. I love him. I have forgiven him.
By the way, they're divorced.
I believe in him. And as we have said from the beginning, we are moving forward.
His fall from grace was extraordinary. A congressman with national promise, forced to resign 2 years ago for sending sexually explicit messages to women. And now Tuesday's revelations could spell new trouble for his candidacy. He acknowledges sending messages for a year after he resigned from Congress. The email messages were explicit and X-rated. I hear liberal girls are very accommodating of others. His rivals and others are calling for him to leave the race. But Huma is defending her man and his candidacy.
It was not an easy choice in any way. But I made the decision that it was worth staying in this marriage. But I do very strongly believe that that is between us.
And he is asking for yet another chance.
Let me just reiterate to my wife how sorry I am that I did these things, and how sorry I am to the people that got these messages.
Jeff, Weiner was in the thick of this race before these new revelations. Hard to know whether voters are going to give him a third chance in addition to a second. But this seemed to surprise even those closest to the campaign.
It did, George, and it surprised those closest to the family. A couple friends close to the family.
Okay, we're done with that. One, it's not surprising anybody. Let's be honest. My point is, there's degeneracy mixed through all this. Okay, so an update. My son, I just remembered, my son's shotgun is a Beretta 300, I think, the semi-auto. The Mossberg I got from my mother-in-law. She's like, come get this gun. She goes, it's a gun. He had it. I don't think it was used. So we go over there, and she bring it back. It's in a case. The case has like 3 locks on the front of it. So I had to mace my son. We broke in because we didn't have the key. Broke into the thing, broke through 3 locks, opened it up. There's another gun lock in there. That I actually had the key, but it's a pump action. So, but his is a semi-auto, so it's pretty sweet. You'd think Soros could pull some better Soros' son. That's not his son. He looks a lot like him, but it's not. Then again, maybe she's just a beard. Probably so. Yeah, you'd think so. Get the old master key. I don't know. Oh, is that you talking for the gun? We destroyed him. I've got my father-in-law was safety man. He bought. By the way, this gun is brand new. It's got a sticker on it still, never used. He just bought it because he should have it, and then locked it up. As a matter of fact, he had a handgun too. And we're like, hey, Grandma, let's see I want to take a look at the handgun. And she's like, well, that's in a lock, but it's in the safe. So she had to find the key to the safe. You get in the safe. Then there's another box in there of keys that are locked in something. It was like the Russian doll situation to find. And she had a nice little handgun too. Okay. Let's move on from there. What I want to talk to now, let's go to the leaked documents from the Supreme Court, which is the Dobbs decision. Okay, this one was I want to say it really had an impact because Dobbs itself had a major impact for the the midterm elections had a big impact they wanted it to be a big thing for the Supreme Court. I mean, for the national elections, but it didn't really pan out as much that way. Because once it happened, right? Once it already happened, and then you had time to figure out what was going to be, be the situation with it. I don't think it was as big a deal. But what was the ramifications from there, and why did this kind of thing, and where are we at with this? So, Supreme Court investigators failed to identify who leaked the Dobbs decision. Supreme Court has not been able to determine who leaked the draft of the Justice Samuel Alito opinion. Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, the court said on Thursday. And I talked about this before. When you look at this case, what's fascinating is we've said this for years, which is everyone's known it. When I first started getting into politics and they're talking about Roe v. Wade, everyone says, oh, well, everyone says it's bad law. It's bad law. It's bad law. Like, okay, it's bad law. But it's a sacred cow bad law. Therefore, it will never be overturned. The problem is, in a case like this, where the Jackson's Women's Health Organization, they pushed back. It was them pushing against Dobbs, and then Dobbs had to do the reverse, I think, to come to court. But they were the ones, I could have this wrong, but the point of the situation is this case was presented from the perspective of the people who wanted more abortions, okay? There was restrictions going on, and they are pushing back against this. The problem that they don't always understand, and I always reiterate this to clients, which is a lot of times it's reciprocal relief, which is you may ask for X, and if it's on that issue, it could be completely reversed. It doesn't mean that the judge is going to give you more than what you're looking for. As an example, in my case, we have family law. There's you're looking to change child support or spousal support or something like, or maybe custody. Let's talk about custody. You want more custody for maybe it's 50-50 or maybe it's like 20%, and you want maybe it's the person with the higher percentage. They want more. Okay, so they're going to go in there. Now the court doesn't just say, oh, we're either going to offer you more or it's going to be back to just keep the order as is. It could be it's completely swapped and the other person gets what they want, which is maybe they get 100%. So you always have to be careful asking for this because the remedy could be much different than what you want. That's what happened in Dobbs, which is they're like, oh, there's a restriction or we should have more. And so they're pushing against it. And everyone's been saying this is bad law, bad law, bad law. No concept in these people's mind that perhaps the law is going to be overturned and they're going to lose everything. Matter of fact, this one comes about, goes to the Supreme Court, and they knock it down and they say, we're not gonna have a federal restriction at all on abortion. And we're gonna walk through a little bit of this because I think it's actually pretty good. Mossberg 500, yes, that's what I have. I don't know what you're talking about in Master Key. Okay. I have my handgun down here on the floor. It's not just sitting in the floor. It's in a box, or in my pill box. Is that what you call it? Ammo box, I guess. Unprecedented leak last May revealed that the court was privately poised to overturn the court's landmark decision establishing a constitutional right to an abortion. The court indicated on Thursday that investigators would continue to review some additional evidence. The court's 2-page statement left open the possibility that the source of the leak may never be found. And that's what we're getting at here is the FBI is going to reopen this. The courts, and by the way, this one I'm more interested in, okay? There is something about the Supreme Court where you need to go like, you know what? Let's get to the bottom of this. This is a big leak. It's not supposed to happen, okay? And the justices, if they're the ones that are doing it, perhaps we need to get to the bottom of this and shut shit down. If it's one of your Ketanji Brown Jackson, BJ, if it's any of the other women on the court, then, we need to, maybe you impeach them, right? Now, what's going to happen, let's say it was anybody on the court, and it's going to come to them, they are going to get, would they? I think they would get an underling to take the fall for them, right? Too big of a deal politically to have a Supreme Court justice having leaked this. Then you can have precedent at least for the Congress to start impeachment proceedings. Maybe you get them impeached and then maybe you get them convicted in the Senate. I imagine it's the same way as the president. That sounds like to me possibly can happen. Scandalous. Okay, so there we go. Here is the Dobbs decision. Maybe we should actually look at this. The court statement came at let's see, do we have the 2-page statement? Supreme Court. Okay, I already have this actually. So here is the actual, booyah. May 22, the court suffered one of the worst breaches in trust in its history, the leak of a draft opinion. The leak was no mere misguided attempt at protest. It was a grave assault on the judicial process. To meet our obligation as judges, we accept submissions from parties and amici. We engage advocates in oral arguments, and we publish explanations in our final decisions. All of this we do in the open. Along the way, though, it is essential that we deliberate with one another candidly and in confidence. That phase of the judicial process affords us an opportunity to hone initial thoughts, reconsider views, persuade one another, and work collaboratively to strengthen our collective judgment. It is no exaggeration to say that the integrity of the judicial proceedings depends on the inviolability of internal deliberations. For these reasons and others, the court immediately and unanimously agreed that the extrajudicial behavior betrayal of trust that took place last May warranted a thorough investigation. The Chief Justice assigned to the task a Marshal of Chief Justice and her staff, after months of diligent analysis and forensic evidence and interviews of almost 100 employees, the Marshal's team determined that no further investigation was warranted with respect to the many of the 82 employees who had access to electronic or hard copies of the draft opinion. Marshal's report of findings and recommendations. In following upon all available leads, however, the Marshal's team performed additional forensic analysis and conducted multiple follow-up interviews of certain employees, but the team has to date been unable to identify a person responsible by a preponderance of the evidence. A public version of the Marshal's report is attached. Recently, the court consulted Michael Chertoff. Mr. Chertoff is a former Secretary of Homeland Security, judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals in 3rd District, Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, U.S. Attorney of the District Court of New Jersey. We invited Mr. Chertoff to assess Marshal's investigation. He has advised that Marshal undertook a thorough investigation, and at this time, I cannot identify any additional useful investigative measures. Torture. Not already undertaken or underway. Statement by Michael Chertoff. The Marshal reports that investigators continue to review the process and process some electronic data that has been collected, and a few other inquiries remain pending. Marshal's report 2. To the extent that additional investigation yields new evidence or leads, investigators will pursue them. The Marshal and her team will there's the problem, will continue to have our full support. Okay, so I'm not really confident in that. And maybe if the Republicans come in, they will actually, do a little bit better. I hope Tyler changes an amount and never has to have a chimping client. I hope Tyler charges an amount and never has to have a chimping client. I don't know what that's in reference to, but hell yeah. Master key is when you use your shoddy to open doors. Okay. Exorbitant amount. Okay, let's see here. I hope Tyler charges an exorbitant amount and never has to, you know what? That's an interesting point. So I'm a pretty busy attorney. I don't do any advertising and I just get, a lot of inquiries. And, today a lady called and she wanted to know about divorce, that kind of thing. So I'm walking through, and what I do at this point, I just ask for not an exorbitant amount of money, but a good amount down that it does weed out some clients. My hourly rate's not cheap either. I'm pretty solid in my area. As far as with a comparison to other attorneys, I'm probably, top third or so. But I mean, of just like average family law attorneys, there's definitely ones in the big cities that are charging tons more. But I'm decent. But I'm asking for a little bit more down as a deposit, which does weed them out. So if they're a serious client and they're willing to put the money down, fine, we'll do that. Then we'll, have them for a while, get through their case. And otherwise, someone was like, oh, but can you take just, like $5,000? And I'm just like, no, no, because if I need you to be, they put the money up front, they put it in a trust account and deposit with me. And then I work on their case and bill on an hourly basis and then just move every week, I do their billing and move it from the trust and pay their invoice. And the worst part is you get to a point where you start to have it, hey, you need to add more to your, and I have some clients where it's just like, we could resolve this shit quite easily, but you're just a bunch of shitheads. Have, cases where they're just trying to sell the house and they are literally both stuck on who they want to use as a realtor. That's it. But they will not deviate, neither one. So what are we going to have to do? We're going to have to, and I'm telling them, I'm like, well, if we file a motion in court, the judge is going to pick one of you to select 3 realtors and then give a list to the other one, and they're going to select one of those to use. And it may not be you just because you're filing the motion. And so it's a realtor. They want to get the best out of the house for both of you. Nope. So just blowing through money, going back and forth. People are insane what they do. Do a desk. No. You go into Bro Grove, Tyler. I really wanted to go to Bro Grove. I could totally have gone. But that week it's Friday, Saturday, and on a Friday I have a settlement conference, and then on Monday I have a whole trial week. And so I'm trying to resolve that one, and it's just not resolving. So I just don't have an option to do. I can't go there. I could go for the weekend, fly in, fly out, but it'd be too much stress on me for that. So I'm not going to go. That's the bar. Unless if this thing comes to, totally resolve it, maybe I'll get a last minute ticket, go out there. I wish I could go down this year, but so next year I'm going to really try to do it. What is your hourly rate? Do you really want to know? I don't know if I really want to put this out. Depends. Just 420. It's in the 4s. Okay. We'll put it there. And by the way, I'm very good at so here's what it is. I don't have clients that are over the top. So we have an attorney hourly rate. I have a paralegal hourly rate and an administration hourly rate. And those are much less than my attorney. And you can't bill. It's not like you just sit there and you clock in and you work 8 hours. Billing can be very difficult. Okay. It's every 6 minutes is another point. So you divide, 60 minutes by 10, it's in a 10. And that's, 0.1 of an hour, 0.2. And, so I'm working on something and it's 5 minutes, 1 to 6 minutes is all the same, 0.1, 6 to 12 is 0.2, and I try to be very expeditious with my clients' money because, like I said, I don't do advertising. So there's 2 real big aspects in being able to make money and to be a good attorney and I'll tell you a story that I just had this week as well. So what I try to do is when the clients are done, I've given them expectations of how this is going to go, and it falls in line with that. That's the big thing, right? Advising them constantly. Like go to court, if it's a new client, I tell them how it's going to happen. Okay, here, we're in this department, it's this judge. Here's what we're gonna walk in, we're gonna do this, we're gonna talk to this person, then we're gonna sit down, we're gonna do da-da-da, and you just walk, I just tell them how it's gonna happen for the day, and then we go in there and everything just exactly, for the most part, falls in line as to how I described it. That gives your client a lot of confidence, just a fact of procedural of how you've been here before, right? You're not going to be stuck. Nothing's going to get past you that you're not prepared for and that you can outline to them. So that's one aspect. Then how is this judge going to rule? Here's the law. Here's how it works. These things are mandatory. These things are permissive. The judge has discretion on certain things, and you walk them through this as well. That's why you get an attorney, so that you don't act like you can get the moon and waste everybody's money and time when it's never going to happen. Now, people don't have attorneys or they have a bad attorney. They go down those routes anyways. They got a case Monday. It's exactly what the situation is. This lady decided to defend herself, and it's a sad situation because it's just blowing through my client's money trying to defend these craziness, and you get out in front of them and you help those. So anyway, those are 2 things. So when you're done, if you've been good with their money and you've got the outcomes that you've predicted, these people are going to then send you some. I've had clients just recently. A guy comes to me, it's a client I have now, and he's like, oh, I was actually recommended by opposing party. He was opposing party on the case, and he's like, you got to have this guy. So he's coming to me, and we're working on it just fine. Now, I had a case recently where I was what's called a claimant. Okay, so you have a petitioner and you have a respondent going through a divorce. This was a divorce where these two parties, Vietnam area, it was over there. That's where they were from. You know, their original families. So this had grandparents. They came and they bought a house in the 90s. Didn't spend much money on it. This house is now worth, you know, $500,000. They're going to retire. And the son is like, hey, your health isn't so good. How about you and me, you and mom sell, and the sister actually, sell the house to us. There's like 40 grand left on the mortgage. We'll pay it off. You stay here for the rest of your life. That way I'm concerned about you being able to even make your mortgage payments. It's only 40 grand for like a $500,000 house. They'd been in there, you know, since early 90s. Parents are like, yeah, because we've already transferred title a few times. Grandma was on it, then 2 years off, then we put the sister on it. So it's just kind of what we do with the family. But it's going to be this kind of a life estate for this family. So they do it. Then the wife goes, oh, I'm getting a divorce. So she files for divorce. Now this house that they bought for $40,000 when it was worth, you know, $500,000, she's like, oh yeah, that's part of our community assets. And so I'll tell you what, you take that house, I'll take the other house. And he's like, whoa, it's not. So my parties come in, we get claimed as a joinder to this case, which is not easy. We get in there, da-da-da-da. Anyway, we go through, we make a deal with everybody involved, okay? 3 different attorneys. We do a settlement conference. We wipe this thing out. We forgot to put in the settlement, at that day, the agreements and the settlement conference, one item, okay? And, but it had been, anyway, so opposing counsel, he's one of them, he's drafting up the settlement agreement, and he sends it and he goes, hey, look, my client, he wants to split all the retirement accounts. And one of the other counsel that was kind of the wife's, she was a little more at odds than the other two. We were all kind of out together. He comes back and he's like, well, actually we had discussed this, and the son was keeping his own retirement. We're not splitting them. He's keeping his own. And so he reached out to me, Tyler, what's your recollection of this? And so I looked through my notes, settlement conference, and every time we had a separate offer going back and forth, it was always they were keeping their own retirement accounts. Now, we just forgot to memorialize this. But it's kind of a big deal because it could have shot down this whole agreement that we had already done. So I just responded back and I'm like, look, I'm telling you, my notes say every time we had an offer, the retirement account was, each party was keeping their own. We were not dividing them, okay? She had a bigger retirement than him, so that was kind of the contention there. And so anyway, we worked it out. Now, that counsel, I saw him in court the other day, Monday, Tuesday, one of those, and he comes over to me and he's like, oh my God, that is so, thank you for being honest. And I'm like, well, I was just the truth. I just had this. He's like, I can't tell you how many people I've been telling in this court for the last few weeks about how honest you were about doing this, because it was really against, it was not necessarily against my clients, but my clients, and it was their son, and then the ex-wife, the wife was on the other side. That's he was counsel for. And I'm just like, look, this is what you do. Like, I need to be working with opposing counsel. You have to be somewhat, you're always defending your client as best you can, but you're not doing it in a way that's going to undermine your own credibility. I've got credibility in that courthouse with him now, even more so, because that'll be spread around for other people. And it's very helpful for you, right? This is things that you go through in life that are very necessary. And it was real easy for me to do, which was, just tell the truth. It didn't really matter to me either way, but it does matter because I've had other attorneys where you have a deal and one of the big things is you can do service electronically. You just agree to email, and we had an agreement, and then I'm emailing it and he's like, nope, it's not. And I'm just like, okay, now you're going against me, or you're backtracking on something we had agreed. I can't trust you on anything. You got to have some sort of the trust. I don't know what the point about this all was. Okay, let's see, we're here. Never get an overweight attorney. There are those ones. As opponent, an opposing attorney is high praise. How many hours do you usually bill a week? She has a bigger retirement. That's an interesting aspect. It is. And we do with those, it's called here, the time rule, which is date of marriage through date of separation. And we just do what's called a quadro qualified domestic relations order, which breaks those out as if, because you have to do everything with the retirements under what's called a RISA law, which governs retirement accounts. So you can't just, you have to divide them. And it's typically as if you're the one client, if you're, let's say, opposing party, opposing party worked for the state of California and they had this retirement account, or any company, right? My client's then going to get 1/2 of what was ever gained, data marriage through data separation plus any gains and losses associated with that for the retirement. And sometimes you just do a buyout, but if it's a pension, it's a little bit more complicated. So we do this quadro, which divides it. And it's as if that person had worked there and no longer does. So you divide it, they get their own portion. Now they get you've worked at a company, have a retirement account, you don't work there anymore, you can roll it over. That's the idea that you have with these. I'm getting out of breath just talking about this. And as far as how many hours I work a week, it all depends. I make a decent amount of money, right? But I have a lifestyle that I really enjoy, which is podcast, wife, dogs, chickens, kids. So I don't overextend myself, right? Sometimes I'll have to go in and do a little work on the weekends if I have some trials and stuff coming up, but I get in there, 7 o'clock, I'll wake up. Sometimes we'll go my wife and I maybe go to the gym or pickleball or something in the morning, get to the office, 7:30, 8 o'clock. And I'm out of there like at 3:30. Some days I'll work till 5, 6, but hardly. I'll usually come home, we'll hang out, and then maybe I'll come up to my office and do some work here. But I could kill it. I could probably, do another third of what my income is if I worked a bunch more hours. I love hanging out with my wife. I love the life I have. And so you have to have this work-life balance. It really is what it's all about. Okay, let's do a little bit more here, talking about SCOTUS.
More breaking news. One of the biggest breaches in Supreme Court history, and we don't know who did it. SCOTUS just announced its investigation into the Dobbs opinion leaker has come up short. Back with me is NBC News White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell. So they interviewed a lot of people. Why were they not able to find anyone?
Well, Katie, we're pouring through documents that the court has just released, and the court has called this a grave assault on the judicial system and a terrible betrayal. And what they have done is they have outlined the forensic steps they have taken. And the headline is they have found no perpetrator. And that is certainly a concern. Now, to take people back to what we're talking about, this was the Dobbs case that overturned Roe v. Wade. And back in May, a draft opinion that indicated that the court's conservative majority would overturn the right to abortion in this country was leaked. It was published by Politico. And what that was able to do, as many analysts have looked at it, was in effect to lock in the conservative justices between the time of the release and the time of the ultimate decision being announced publicly. Could that have changed the course of history? Would that have affected decisions that the justices could have made among themselves to negotiate or to work out perhaps a different outcome? That may not.
Okay, so notice how her interpretation is against the right-wing justices, right?
Not be known. Because of this unusual case, something extraordinary in the history of the court turned this over to the U.S. Marshals. They then worked with the Chertoff Group. You know the name Michael Chertoff. He was a former official in the Bush White House as the head of Homeland Security. What they did is they looked at things like fingerprint analysis, digital analysis of the copy of the draft report that was ultimately published. They went and looked at hardware like printers that belonged to court employees to try to find out, was there any evidence? No one confessed, no evidence surfaced that identified a court employee. And what this report goes on to say is that there are many kinds of steps for securing these highly sensitive documents that should take place.
Okay, so Clarence Thomas's wife, that's what she's saying here. Look, let me answer. This is interesting. Ask me questions, family law stuff, that's perfectly fine. We'll work on this together. Is there like a time frame a party has to be together to get another retirement? So in California, and it's for most places, this light's going dead here. Community property says anything acquired from the date of marriage through the date of separation is considered community property. Now, date of marriage is obvious. Date of separation is when you stop living as a married couple. So it's a little bit different, but we'll figure out a date. Sometimes it's when they file. Typically, they've already separated before then, moved out. There's case law about parties still living in the same house that they're separated. Other case law when they're living separately, but they're still considered married. So it just all depends. However, those dates, no matter how long, and so let's say it's a week. Okay, we go to your plan administrator and you're like, here's the date of marriage, here's the date of separation, it's only a week. And what did they have any contributions to their retirement account? Because anything you acquire, that's your pay stub, your paycheck, I mean, when you're married, that is considered community property. So if you're getting a pay stub, a paycheck, and it's deposited into your account, and out of that is you're contributing to your retirement account, that's a contribution. If it's during that time of marriage, the other part, it's community property, which means the other party is entitled to 1/2 of that, okay? Now you can offset these things. So if it's a big amount, sometimes it's like, or small, and you can actually calculate what that is. You just say, well, you're gonna be awarded this, and because it's best to not be breaking up and doing what they call these quadros for multiple accounts. Each one takes someone to draft this up. We use a company that does that. $500-600 in the division. What if you just say, one account's big and then this other one has a bunch of little ones you're going to split? What if you just break one up and you can do all within there? That's the perfect way to actually go about it. Okay. Sorry to dip into another's retirement. I had a couple of beers, no problem. Just wondering how, because I've heard horror stories from fellow elder sailors. Now, here's the thing. I've got a client that can't get over the fact that this is going to happen. He wants his retirement. We've done it, and it's a pension. The problem with pensions is it's estimated time at retirement, and so you don't actually know the value, which is if you have a 401k, the dollars go in there, it's getting reinvested. There's either gains or losses. Those numbers are simple and easy, and you can say, here's the value at the date of separation, boom, boom, boom. Pension, we don't know. So that's all an estimation with actuaries and whatnot, and it's a complicated situation. And so to do a buyout, saying, my pension's worth X, Y, and Z, we don't actually know. I have a client that's just all worked up over this. And I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you. You're trying to keep something that, and it's all wrong. And I'm like, well, tell me what's wrong about it, because I don't believe it is wrong, and it's going to be upheld. So you get a lot of this with men's rights where they tell you horror stories, and maybe they tell you because it makes them feel better, or they don't tell you all the facts. I've got this multiple times, and all I'm saying is just be careful when you're hearing stories. When you're hearing stories about people's cases, and they may not always tell you all that is truthful. Now, they may not know that they're not telling you the truth, but it may be some. I love this next question, actually, so we'll get to it. So oftentimes client comes in, they tell you a sob story. You're like, okay, now let me see the rulings. And you see this and you're like, okay, that's not typically actually how it happened. Also, court has some things. There's courts of law and courts of equity. Okay. Courts of law are not strict liability, but here's the law, and we're just going to dictate off of that. Courts of equity are what is fair. Okay, now family law is very much a mix of that. You'll go into it and you'll have a motion, and maybe there's two different things. Maybe you have two different items you're going to get taken care of. And one of them, child support, as an example, is pretty much like, what are the parameters? Here's the number, spits out, put it in a calculation, boom, here it is. Then there's some other things where the judge has to make more of a decision on what's fair or not in this case, okay? You can have same hearing, two different issues. One's a issue of law and one's an issue of equity, and you come out and the person's just like, oh, I just got screwed. They may not understand the nuances that are going into this, and so then and this is the problem I have with men's rights stuff all the time, and I'm like a men's rights person, but I mean like men's rights and family law, which is they come out, they complain, maybe they don't understand, and then they tell a sob story about how my retirement was taken. Well, yeah, because you got married to this woman, you decided she didn't have to work, she's sitting at home drinking, eating bonbons, collecting half of your retirement, and you're fine with it. Then don't get married and have that kind of an agreement. Many people are going to push back about the Chad lifestyle. I get it, all this. But you should know these aspects going in, and I guess that's my issue. Common law marriage, is it real? I live in California. Not in California, it's not real. There's only like, I want to say 8 states that have common law marriage. And I did a breakdown of this. It's Dave Smith, Andrew Wilson. They had a debate and they talked about common law marriage and they were completely wrong. There's still aspects of it that are much an agreement, an understanding of what you're actually doing. The intent to get married has to, I believe, be there. So there's only a few, like I said, 8 states or so with common law marriage. And even within those, there's some restrictions to get through. And so I would encourage you to go back and do it. Eddie Grimm says that makes sense. Hi, Curtis. Hey, JC. These fucking courts of equity. Yes, there's fucking courts of equity. And look, with that, it's not like it's a court of equity, but it's just that sometimes there's an issue. Like if you go into, I have a hearing Monday, and one of the aspects we're going through is like attorney's fees, okay? That's very much subjective, okay? And then there's other aspects if you go in on certain like motion to compel to discovery, and there's certain aspects that haven't been taken care of by the other side. It's by statute that you're allowed to have attorney's fees sanctioned a certain amount, okay? It's just by statute it happens. So that's a court of law, and the equity is more along the lines there's discretion given to the judge. So a lot of these things are always given in there. A lot of times it's misery loves company situation, why they want to blackpill someone else with sob stories. Yes. Great breakdown. Thank you, Tyler. Yeah. So if you go to my Substack, which you should, Substack, tyleryankee.substack.com, I do have an article there, and I've done a few of these talking about, it's like the wild, wild west of family law. I talked about and kind of like preparing men for stuff here. I also just did one about prenuptial agreements and, marriage and whatnot. There's a lot of things that go into these things. My biggest problem is the anticipation of litigation. No one anticipates litigation when they're getting married, and you shouldn't, because it doesn't help your marriage if you're always planning for divorce. But with that in mind, once you are getting divorced, you need to fucking prepare for it and be ready to. Women, my female clients, they'll come out and they'll have a list of they're taking screenshots, they're doing all this, and they have it. And the other person, and now recently I had a trial in February, and I think I've talked about this, where it was, pretty salacious details. My client, male, was very, very organized, and he had all the receipts. Those receipts saved his ass. I mean, almost literally. So if you go into it and you understand what your situation is, and you be prepared, and you don't have a sob story, because that is true what you said there, JC, about woe is me. If you're willing to already take that victim mentality, then when you come out of it and you haven't prepared or you haven't done everything you can, it's going to be a woe is me situation. You're always going to be blaming someone else for that. Is it like a girl's court? Yeah. Tyler, what is the biggest curveball you get in day to day? You know your shit. Has to be more than client interactions, or no? Client interactions can be rough because I had a girlfriend once call me the Tin Man because she said I have no heart, which is not true. My wife was just telling my daughter the other day, she's like, oh yeah, when dad starts drinking a bit, he tears up about kids. Yeah, I absolutely love my kids, and I am compassionate, very much so. But I'm also German. And with that, sometimes it's very difficult to really care about a lot of people's feelings, especially when I see them just being idiotic and, they want to tear the other party down instead of just resolving stuff and moving on. What's in the best interest? Is it in the best interest of your kids to be fighting all the time? No. So that is, I don't know about a curveball, but that's the biggest curveball I've got is, and this is what you tell your clients, like, look, we have to have a discussion. I need to know everything. I don't want to be going into court and being surprised. I used to have a law partner. He was my good friend in law school, and then he joined me. We started a law firm together. He eventually went and worked for the state. It just wasn't for him. He was doing criminal law, some driving DMV and DUI stuff. And then he started doing family law stuff. And he had a client there, and they're talking about a restraining order or custody situation. And opposing party, he had the female and the dad on the other side. He's like, yeah, but she was out selling herself for drugs and prostitution. And she goes, well, I was, but it's like, wait. I needed to know these guys, because he kind of led her into this kind of disclosure. So, can't really have that. What else we got here? I'll check it out now. Yeah, go to my Substack, guys, because I might do a members only thing here. 0.012 hour of work. Now, I don't go to that far down. I just go 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's an interesting thing, right? Which is if you are billing, and I tell the clients this all the time, which is like, if you're going to start an email to me, if you have questions, and put it in your draft folder, maybe save it there a few days. If you have more questions, tag it on, and then send me one. What they will do is they'll send me like 5 different emails. Maybe I get to one in the morning and I'm like, point 1, took me like 2 minutes, respond, point 1. Then I'm working on something else and they have another email come in. Boom, I do that one. There's another point 1, respond. It was a minute to handle that one. Then another third one comes in, that's point 1. Okay, so that's point 3. Now, overall, it probably didn't even take me 5 minutes to review all 3 of those. But I took care of them during the different times of the day. So I'm sorry, that's just what it is. If you are a little better yourself, I tell my clients how to cheat the system, right? I tell them that because when I'm done, I want to have it, I want to have them suggest to me to someone else. Tyler, did you hear Meredith officially became a certified family law specialist? No, I did not. That's amazing. No, it's not. Sorry. That's awesome for her. Many people will do that, and then they can put it on their. They take a test. They take a test to become a certified. I don't know why I'm laughing. At one point I was going to do it, and then I'm just like, why? I charge more than a lot of certified family law specialists do. You get to put it on your thing. Fine. By the way, that's great. I mean, she knows a lot, but sometimes people ask me questions when they know a lot too. So. Oh my God, hi Nancy, cheating the system is based. Yes, it is. Okay, should we keep going? Let's keep going here. Let's talk a little bit about the Dobbs decision. And let's see if I can find it here. I'm gonna walk through. I just want to talk about the Dobbs just a little bit. SCOTUS report, there we go. Pages 117. Okay, so we're gonna go to actually, I'm only gonna read Clarence Thomas's, wait, what's this one? That's the Dobbs report. That's not the one I want. We're going to read a little bit about Clarence Thomas. Let's see if I get this. His dissent, because I think that's actually interesting. Okay, it's actually an interesting take on his concurring decision. It's actually an interesting take on the Dobbs case. Tyler, do you know any attorney that specializes in firearms that resides in Pennsylvania? I'm looking to open my gun shop in a few months and I need an attorney. No, but Eddie, if you go on Twitter, send me that same message and I'll put out some feelers, see if I know anybody. That's awesome for you. I'm really happy for you on that one. See what I can do. I'm guessing no, Nancy, niggers can't afford Tyler. Wait, what did Nancy say? What did I miss? What did I miss Nancy's? Did we get some money in here? $10. Got a $10 chat or Rumble rant. Okay. And then a $5 one from Brain Workout with a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. Why we're not loading these things here. Sometimes I have trouble with the scrolling bit. Great stream, Tyler, said Eddie Graham. I appreciate that. Will do. Thank you. Yeah. Hit me up. I don't know that I'll have an answer because I don't practice in Pennsylvania. But I would love to help you, and maybe we can post it out there. Hey, because there's got to be gun attorneys, and I know it's Defense America or something. There's a bunch of different ones out there. So yeah, you want to make sure you're taken care of. And by the way, it's always I just do, like I said, I do family law. I talk about a lot of this other stuff because I have passions about the 14th Amendment, substantive due process, and constitutional law. But I'm not an expert in that, and it is best to be an expert. I've said this bunch, which is I'm really good at family law. I wish I was better at something else because family law kind of blows, but I just happen to be good at it. It's what I've been doing. And it's better to be good at one thing than like kind of mediocre at a whole bunch. And I see too many attorneys that are doing that. And for those ones, I think I walk circles around them in court and with the filings and all the little things you have to do because it's what just I do all the time, right? So we can't miss that. Hi, Nancy. Hey, Meat. I'll try to not miss a shot there. Okay. I join the opinion of the court because it correctly holds that there is no constitutional right to abortion. This is Clarence Thomas's dissent in Dobbs v. Jackson, Women's Health, whatever it is, Women's Health. Respondents invoke one source for that right. The 14th Amendment guarantee that no state shall, quote, deprive any person of life, liberty, or the property without due process of law. The court well explains why, under our substantive due process precedents, the purported right to abortion is not a form of liberty, protected in the due process clause. Such a right is neither deeply rooted in this nation's history or tradition, nor implicit in the concept of ordered liberty. Now, we've heard this, not that's due process, but deeply rooted in the nation's history or tradition. Bruin really went into account with that with the guns, right? You're right to, they've now gone back and like, okay, is there one? And there was also this debate. Now, you listen to Reason and their breakdown of this, and they're like, oh, there's a tradition, there was abortion way back in the day. And it's like, okay, was there? There doesn't seem to, there was an argument as to that, but it doesn't seem like there actually was much. By the way, we put a goal up. We put a goal up for 10 super chats. Now we got 2 out there, or at least 2 in Rumble land. Maybe I should look at Rumble in general. Let's see here. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything, folks. There's the chat in. We had 2 chats come in for Twitter. Where's the Rumble one? Not seeing that one. Okay, I don't know where. You know, let's do it this way. I'm sorry, folks. You've been here for a while. We're just gonna keep going. Okay, so there we go. Eddie Graham said, great stream, Tyler, and Brain Bucket said $5. Perfect. All right. We'll be able to check back on that one, but nothing on the Rumble side. I don't know. I'm not going to keep grifting off this. I already said that's what I need to do. Let me tell you my hourly wage, and why can't you guys? Curtis sent me a $5. Curtis, I really appreciate that. Where'd you send it over on? I hope if you send it on YouTube, it's not maybe not showing there, but if you send it over on Rumble, so what happens in Rumble, and I do this all the time, if I don't catch it, it disappears. So I try to do this on Tower Gang as well, see all the postings of money, and then next thing you know, it disappears. And so it's like there now the only, okay, there's a, Curtis said, oh, that's the 0.12 hour of work. I get it now. I get it now. Solid job to you guys. That's pretty funny. Let's do another pop out chat. Okay. I will have this one down here as well. So I will have 2 chats there. Okay. Let's keep going here with this. I want to get through this a little bit here. That's the Glicksberg. The idea that the framers of the 14th Amendment understood the due process clause to protect a right to abortion is farcical. Okay, I write separately to emphasize a second, more fundamental reason why there is no abortion guarantee lurking in the due process clause. Considerable historical evidence indicates that due process of law merely required executive and judicial actors to comply with legislative enactments and the common law when depriving a person of life, liberty, or property. So, and you're like, yeah, due process. It seems like that's just, you've got to have notice, you've got to have a right to be heard, maybe a judicial proceeding, No, well, that's it. That's procedural due process. And then the courts come up with this whole banty idea of substantive due process, which is just bullshit, okay? And we should be doing away with these made up law. It's what it is the Supreme Court deciding that they want to just make up an idea, basically doing what Congress is doing by making a law, and then they have to now follow this all along every time. It's kind of batty situation. Other sources, by contrast, suggest that due process of law prohibited legislatures from authorizing the deprivation of a person's life, liberty, or property without providing him the customary procedures to which freemen were entitled to the old law of England. Okay. It does not, as the court's substantive due process cases suppose, forbid the government to infringe certain fundamental liberty interests at all, no matter what process is provided. As I have previously explained, substantive due process is an oxymoron that lacks any basis in the Constitution. Exactly. Let's support for and history and text and history provide little support for modern substantive due process doctrine. The notion that a constitutional provision that guarantees only process before a person is deprived of life, liberty, or property could define the substance of those rights strains credulity for even the most casual user of words. McDonald v. Chicago. Concurring. The resolution of the case is thus straightforward because the due process clause does not secure any substantive rights. It does not secure a right to abortion. The court today declines to disturb substantive due process per jurisprudence generally or the doctrine's application in other special contexts like Griswold v. Connecticut. The right of married persons to obtain contraceptives. Lawrence v. Texas to engage in private consensual sexual acts. And Obergefell, the right to same-sex marriage are not at issue. The courts of those are substantive, and we talk about that, which is you're talking about your different tiers of analysis, and if there's a fundamental right, it gets more. We'll walk through the procedural due process, substantive. Whether the entire 14th Amendment and jurisprudence must be preserved or revised. Thus, I agree that nothing in the court's opinion should be understood to cast doubt on precedents that do not concern abortion. For that reason, in future cases, we should reconsider all the court's substantive due process precedents, including Griswold, Lawrence, and Obergefell, because any substantive due process decision is demonstrably erroneous. That's beautiful. We have a duty to correct the error established in those precedents. After overruling these demonstrably erroneous decisions, the question would remain whether other constitutional provisions guarantee the myriad rights of our substantive due process cases have generated. For example, we could consider whether any of the rights announced in this court's substantive due process cases are privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States protected by the 14th Amendment. Remember, there's also privileges and immunities clause, which we'll talk about later. To answer that question, we would need to decide important antecedent questions, including whether the privileges or immunities clause protects any rights that are not enumerated in the Constitution, and if so, how to identify those rights. That said, even if the clause does protect unenumerated rights, the court conclusively demonstrates that abortion is not one of them under any plausible interpretive approach. So that's the issue with substantive due process is there's enumerated rights, there's unenumerated rights, and we're going to categorize what those are: gender, marriage, what else? Religion, and then there's special tiers that you have for each one. First, substantive due process exalts judges at the expense of the people from whom they derive their authority. Because the due process clause speaks only to process, the court has long struggled to divide what substantive rights it protects. In practice, the court's approach for identifying those fundamental rights unquestionably involve a policy making rather than neutral legal analysis. Substantive due process is a jurisprudence devoid of a guiding principle. That's from the McDonald case. The court divines new rights in line with its own extra constitutional value preferences and nullifies state laws that do not align with judicially created guarantees. Nowhere is this an exaltation of judicial policymaking clearer than the court's abortion jurisprudence. In Roe v. Wade, the court divined a right to abortion because it, quote, felt that, quote, the 14th Amendment's concept of personal liberty included a right to privacy that is broad enough to encompass a woman's decision whether or not to terminate her pregnancy. In Planned Parenthood v. of Southern PA v. Casey, the court likewise identified an abortion guarantee in liberty protected by the 14th Amendment, but rather than a right of privacy, it invoked an ethereal right to define one's own concept of existence, of meaning, of the universe, and of the mystery of human life. As the court's preferred manifestation of liberty changed to, so too did the test used to protect it. As Roe's author lamented, see Casey, Blackburn, okay. Now, in this case, the nature of the purported liberty supporting the abortion right has shifted yet again. Respondents in the United States propose no fewer than 3 different interests that supposedly spring from the due process clause. They include bodily integrity, personal autonomy in family matters, medical care, and faith. Brief of Respondents 21, women's equal citizenship, brief of the United States amicus curiae 24. That 50 years have passed since Roe, and abortion advocates still cannot coherently articulate the right or rights at stake proves the obvious. The right to abortion is ultimately a policy goal in desperate search of constitutional justification. Second, substantive due process distorts other areas of constitutional law. For example, once this court identifies a fundamental right for one class of individuals, it invokes an equal protection clause to demand exacting scrutiny of statutes that deny the rights to others. Okay, I think I'm going to kind of cut it off there, but let's just look here real quick. I don't think I need that. Let's just look at the substantive due process. Supreme Court's foray into defining which government's actions violate substantive due process during the Lochner era. The Supreme Court found a New York law regulating the working hours of bakers to be unconstitutional. This is in 1905, ruling that the public benefit of the law was not enough to justify the substantive due process right of the bakers to work under their own terms. The court determined the free to contract and other economic rights were fundamental, and states' efforts to control employee relations as minimum wage were struck down. In 1937, West Coast Hotel v. Parrish, Lochner's interpretation of the substantive due process by allowing Washington to implement a minimum wage for women, and then it goes on to 1938 case, right? Substantive due process remained a vital, involving constant. In the words of Professor Chermaninsky, who, by the way, I had a class from, encapsulates the criticism around the substantive due process as there is no concept in American law that is more elusive than substantive due process. Yeah, whatever. Last point. I think that's all we're gonna do there. Okay, where are we at? Did we miss anything here? It's nice and cool here. It appears you take the interpretation of legal language very seriously. Maybe you should run for judge in your next election cycle. If you're talking to me, no thank you. I do not want to be a judge, but I appreciate that. I guess bodily autonomy doesn't exist. Take these facts now or else. Yeah, there was a case on that as well. Okay, so substantive due process, 14th Amendment. There's so much we could get into with this, but there's heightened scrutiny. There's, you figure something's, the scrutiny is, what are the three tiers there? Do I even have it in here? I don't know why I'm losing my mind here. Substantive due process, right, there we go. Rational basis, rational basis review, substantive due process derived from the 14th Amendment clause protects the fundamental rights. Yeah, so they figure out if there's a fundamental right, and then there's higher protection or scrutiny that they have to go through. Strict scrutiny, rational basis test. And with that, if it's strict scrutiny, and that's why you saw some cases like the Tennessee case, I think, which was about trans stuff, whether that was supposed to be heightened scrutiny, because if there's a law that's passed and it's under heightened scrutiny, it's just never gonna work. Heightened scrutiny, just, you don't have it. If it's under rational basis, the law is likely going to be fine, because you're not going to be able to get over that so much. So anyway, there's different arguments to be made. So that's why you see sometimes they're really coming in trying to declare something as a fundamental right, and they declared abortion wasn't, therefore we don't have this heightened scrutiny. Thomas really says substantive due process is just bullshit. Anyway, down to do it. Okay, I think I'm done, but go to my Substack, subscribe there, because I may do a show later this evening. I got to go out and take care of some animals. And there we go. We've had a fun one. Let's see about, do I have a song to go out on? Lady Gaga, Tim, oh, we haven't played this one for a while. This is Tim Pool. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week. Hope you have a good one. But yeah, sub to the Substack. It's free. And maybe we'll do a show this weekend. See ya. Bye. Where's my outro?
Okay, I'm leaving now.
But she's back.
And now.
Tyler, if you had any clout about you, if you had any knowledge of the real world of what happens, we walk into Tim Cash's studio, immediately there's 4 Jewish lawyers.
King of the Druids!
Oh, that's all we needed. A Jewish princess.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't expect the normies like Tyler to understand these kind of things. He's just a podunk lawyer somewhere in like rural California. He's an idiot, really.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
This guy's, I wouldn't say he's full of shit, but I'd say he's stupid. Whatever. If you're in the comments, if you're in the chat now, I wouldn't pay attention to anything he says anyway. But
more or less, eat shit and die.
Don't ever come to Top Left. He will end you. Do you see what he just did to Tyler? Just fucking challenge this
Tyler's
entire.
done.
Top is a maniac.
He can't even reply right now because he's crippled.
He's got nothing to say.
What are you talking about? I didn't say that. Why don't you argue with something I said, you dumb bastard?